What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Inside Scoop, your only Florida Keys offshore legit weekly fishing forecast. Look, I'm telling you the straight up scoop here, beginning to end. Okay, right now, June 20th, we've got a lot going on. Let's first start talking about the weather, okay, and what you could expect. Looks like we've got a nice weekend right ahead of us here, 10 to 15 knots. 2 to 3 foot seas, maybe offshore, a couple bigger ones thrown in, but certainly nothing crazy, nothing out of the ordinary. 15 to 20% chance for showers, typical this time of the year. I think it's going to be a great opportunity both today, here Friday, Saturday, along with even Sunday, of course, to get out there and enjoy everything the Keys have to offer, okay? Because the bite's hot. Like I said, there's a lot of different options. And it looks like come next week, it's going to pick up a little bit. And we may see some 15 to 20 knot winds. You know, that's what it is. It's crazy this time of the year. It's really hit or miss. If you're visiting or if you're a local, you know exactly what I mean. One week could be absolutely beautiful, and the next week, you know, it's honking every day. Just because we're here in the Keys doesn't mean that it's picture perfect weather every day. It doesn't work like that. We live on an island in between two oceans. There's a lot of fetch area, a lot of open area where wind and seas build up. We have the Gulf Stream current running at 3+ miles an hour, you know, nonstop. You get that colliding head to head with an easterly breeze of any sort, and it could build and get a little bit snotty offshore this time of the year, even though it's already late June. So just keep an eye on things. But like I said, upcoming weekend looks great. Next week looks okay as well, just a little bit breezier. I want to start off talking about the reef fishing, but I want to touch on something. We're going to, we're going to dig deep on the reef fishing, but I also want to talk to you about the value of fresh bait and how that applies across all of the different fisheries. I want to talk to you about balance also, because that's another big kind of component to successful offshore fishing, and rigging, obviously, in particular, is balance. And I feel like a lot of guys are not really dialed in as much as they can be. So I'm hoping that you really pay close attention throughout this entire report and that you catch up on previous reports as well. The Inside Scoop is designed not only to provide a fishing forecast for the upcoming week and what resident and visiting anglers can expect, but in each report, I also share some fundamentals and different tips and tactics, and combined, they really are going to make you a more successful angler, because I'm telling you what, individually, the small little fundamentals, the details, you know, on their own may not make a big difference, but you combine a number of those little fundamentals and now you have something that could really impact your fishing in a very big way. So for me, it's all about the details, and it's all about sharing all of those small little things that, like I said, when you put them all together, they're just going to make you a more successful fisherman out on the water. And the same applies for bait. You know, nothing gets me fired up more than guys fishing this nasty ass bait. You know, you go to, I don't know, Publix tackle shops and they got these freezer burned cigar minnows and sardines and ballyhoo that just looks like it's been dead for longer than I've been alive. And I don't know, you know, how could you be fishing that stuff? You know, maybe that stuff's reserved for tourists who just don't care if they catch. I don't know, and I'm not downgrading tourists. I'm just simply saying, don't do it. If you really want to be successful on the water, fresh bait is absolutely vital. And that's especially true here in the Keys, starting with the reef and wreck fishing, because that's what we're going to talk about first. The reef fishing is excellent at the end of June. We're approaching summer. It's going to be the first day of summer here any day now. And the snapper tend to migrate to the reef, to the shallow water to spawn. You know, they're migrating there, they're doing their thing, they're feeding heavily, looking for a lot of meat and protein. So you can really have some good fishing on the reef toward the end of June. It's also a fantastic time to fish at night. This is one of the only times of the year where I would really suggest you get out there during the evenings, nighttime, fish that reef, shallow water, it's cooler. It's just a great time of the year, June, July, to do some nighttime snapper fishing. In either event, fresh bait is going to make a very big difference in the outcome of your efforts, no question. And I don't care if you're in Key Largo or Key West or beyond, this applies everywhere. And it starts with chumming. Look, let's talk about chum for a second. I come from a heritage where when we used to chum, we didn't chum in 7-pound blocks. We didn't chum in 5-gallon buckets. We chummed out of 55-gallon drums, okay? Literally 55-gallon drums. We would grind 25-pound slabs of Menhaden bunker, not 1 or 2, but how about 25 slabs, all right? You do the math there. That's a lot of chum. You come down here to Florida, and South Florida especially, and people are chumming out of these little 7-pound boxes in these little fine mesh bags. Listen to what I'm saying. Don't let me catch you using one of those Walmart fine mesh chum bags. Don't do it. The idea is not to conserve your chum. The idea is to disperse your chum. The more chum you put in the water, the more fish will come. The more life you'll attract, and typically the better the fishing is going to be. So it's not about conserving chum. Chum is, at the end of the day, one of the most least expensive factors of the entire successful fishing equation. Stop thinking in terms of boxes of chum, 7-pound boxes, and start thinking in terms of cases of chum. 6 boxes to a case, 42 pounds. If you're going to be really focused on snapper fishing on the reef all day, look, you're going to need 2 cases, okay? You're going to need a minimum of 2 cases. They also sell chum in 25-pound blocks. That's something you should consider as well. This way you don't have to go through those little independent or smaller boxes. Whatever you do, use a chum bag that's adequate, that has larger holes, something like a plastic-coated landing net. Okay, that's really going to make a huge difference. You want that chum to flow. You don't want it to all get trapped inside that mesh bag. Okay, that's not going to help you in any way attract all of that life to the boat. Let it flow. Bring a lot of chum. Now let's talk about the bait. Regardless if it's yellowtail snapper, mangrove snapper, mutton snappers, these fish respond really well to fresh, live, fresh dead baits. Much more so to that stinky stuff, frozen, nasty bait that's just mush and that's just going to fall off the hook. So regardless if it's, pinfish or fresh ballyhoo or goggle eyes or pilchards, you could typically use a cast net and go, if you spend enough time, you're going to catch some pilchards, even if they're small up along the beaches. Those make for great baits when you're snapper fishing. They don't have to be alive. They also spice up a chum slick really, really well and get a lot of the fish really fired up. So fresh is important. Bonita, also really, really a great bait and often overlooked on the reef. People typically think of bonita as an offshore bait, and it is, no question. Bonita, fresh bonita strips are deadly off planers, trolled flat, so many ways to fish a fresh bonita strip. Of course, bonita bellies, bonita tacos, these are baits that we use out there sword fishing, and one of the best baits of all time. Probably the original daytime swordfish bait was a bonita belly. But the flesh, the excess flesh, is fantastic snapper bait, especially for the big yellowtails. They can't ignore that stuff. It's like snapper candy to these things. So fresh bonita. Spend some time going out there catching it yourself. Look, bonita fishing is fun, okay? They fight incredibly hard. It's a great fish to kind of hone your fish fighting skills, especially for new or inexperienced anglers. Look, there's a lot of people traveling to the Keys from all over the country, all over the world. And there's a lot of people that would love to go out there and bend a rod on, a dozen big bonitas throughout the day. It's a lot of fun. Plus, where you find bonitas, I've always said, you'll find blackfin tuna. So you always have that bonus species that may pop up at any time while you're catching that bait. Okay, so that's a double whammy, a win-win, so to speak. So put in the time. Another great bait, speaking of swordfish, I just mentioned it for a second, would be dolphin bellies, but we'll get into that in a minute. So that reef bite, as I mentioned, right now is excellent. Look, the fish are there. Okay, I don't care if you're fishing outside Key Largo, if you're off Big Pine, if you're outside Key West, you're fishing this massive natural reef line. And it's inhabited by countless different species and big schools of snappers. Of course, they're not everywhere all of the time, and they're not always eating. So you have to put in your time, you have to put in the effort, and you have to do the math. You have to say to yourself, wait, if I'm traveling to the Keys, okay, to fish one day, everything has to be in my favor on that one particular day. The wind, the current, the water clarity, water temperature, the fish need to be cooperative, I need to be in the right place, so many different things, right? But if you put in more than one day, 2, 3, 4, 5, obviously your odds are gonna really, really increase and you're gonna get far more dialed in to reef fishing here. So I definitely suggest that you put in as much time as you possibly can. But like I said, make sure you go out there with plenty of chum. Make sure you go out there with plenty of fresh bait. Those are the two things that are vital for any successful reef fishing trip. Of course, there's another key element, and this kind of goes across the board with all of the different fisheries, okay? And it's something that I, really believe is a strong fundamental that I want to drill into your head, and that's balance, okay? Balance. Balance in tackle, balance in rigging, stealth, it all kind of works together. So what do I mean by that? So here's just an example. I've got some highliner brass crane swivels, AKA barrel swivel, that's what everybody calls these. Typical crane barrel swivel. Here it is right here. I've taken one out of the package, 150-pound test. Now, certainly we're not fishing 150-pound test barrel swivels on the reef. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just using this for display purposes, okay? So we've got a brass barrel swivel, 150 pounds. Now, we also have a highliner stainless steel crane swivel, also a barrel swivel, also 150 pounds. But it's micro because of the material, because of the strength of the stainless steel. This tiny little 150-pound swivel is equally as strong as this far larger and more visible 150-pound swivel. I mean, it's literally a third of the size. So that's really important when it comes to balance and stealth. I always want to get away with the cleanest presentation that I can. I want it to look as natural as possible. I want to reduce my terminal tackle signature as much as I possibly can. All of these are going to play a role, okay? And they may not make that big of a difference on any one given day, but over time, it's going to make a huge difference. So there's a place for everything, and everything has a place, right? And there are certainly times when deep drop rigs, anything like disposable, that brass crane swivel is just a perfect option, gets the job done. Stealth, visibility, terminal tackle signature are not vital in every arena, and that's especially true in deep water arenas. So deep, dark water, a lot less likely for a fish to spot that. On the other hand, 35 feet of water on the reef, crystal clear, very little wind, very easy for a fish to spot even a tiny little swivel. So always scale down. That's the nice thing, by the way, about this highliner fishing gear, is that they have the full range, okay? Everything in brass and stainless steel, so you can select what you need when you need it. It's not just, one tool is perfect for every job. That isn't the case. Every fishery requires specialized terminal gear to ensure or to maximize your presentation in that fishery. So something to keep in mind that, like I said, is going to play a big role across all of your fisheries, okay? The snapper, I want to get back to it. Mangroves, yellowtails, muttons on the reef, always a shot at a black grouper. It's been an excellent black grouper season, okay? There's still a lot of black groupers out there over the edge, 70, 80, 90 feet along that sloping wall, under all those crevices and cracks and coral heads. That's where the black groupers are going to be. Get the yellowtail fired up, drop down a live yellowtail on a heavier bent butt wahoo type outfit. You got to stop this thing. You got to slam on the brakes before he takes you home, no matter where you are. They're going to win most of the battles, but you will win some, okay? You will win some. So black grouper, great option. Moving a little bit further offshore, let's talk about deep dropping. Look, snowy grouper's done. It's closed. The most ridiculous thing in the world, but nevertheless, it's closed. But we're still seeing a lot of big tilefish, and I'm going to tell you, this has been a fantastic year for giant blue line tilefish. More so than, any year I can remember since I've been down here deep dropping continuously over the last 5 years or so since I moved here. So really, really promising. Don't overlook the spots that you may be driving over to get to fish, okay? Listen to what I'm saying. And I've made the same mistake. I probably still make it. I drive over a lot of fish to get to other fish, right? Areas that you have a lot of confidence in, where you've caught them before, so you tend to want to go right back there. But there's a lot of ground that you're covering in between, your home port and your ultimate destination. I've learned to explore some of those areas, and they've yielded fantastic results, and a lot of the guys aren't fishing there. I had a couple of conversations this week with guys regarding Seymour and this enhanced imagery for deep dropping and how it's affecting the entire fishery. I think it's a good and bad. Look, it's giving guys a clear understanding of the bottom so they could be more effective. But everybody tends to fish there. So that's a bad thing. But there's a lot of areas that have been unmapped, uncharted, that yield equally impressive results, that are loaded in life. And it's the guys that are willing to put in the time, the energy, the extra effort. Those are the guys that consistently cash in on the big bottom fish when they're deep dropping, okay? Because they put in the work. And that's what you need to do as well. There's also other options that a lot of people don't even turn to or not even sure they're driving over. I'll give you an example. Up off Isle Murata this time of the year, the Isle Murata hump is on fire. There's really good tuna fishing out there for the blackfin tunas. There's a lot of schoolie dolphin out there. But on the way, you're going over a stretch of water at about 450 feet that is incredible. It's an incredible stretch of broken bottom with sharp ledges, holes, valleys, canyons, and a lot of these ridges hold some great fish, some great yellow eye snapper fishing. More importantly, scamp groupers, okay? Both of those species I can only find in decent numbers in this area off Isle Murata, okay? And you can deep drop there at 3-hook rig, 3-0 or 4-0 circle hooks, fresh bait, fresh bonita strip. Telling you right now, fresh bonita chunk, great bait. Drop that to the bottom. Yellow eye snappers are going to jump all over that rig. You don't need a giant piece of bait. They don't have huge mouths. Don't fish a 9-0 hook. That's not the ideal scenario for those yellow eyes up off Isle Murata. The scamp grouper, this is one of the only areas in all of Florida where I've ever even caught scamp grouper on the ocean side. Gulf side, all the time. I never even knew they made it over here. So that's really like a big, big bonus. And they respond really well to jigs, okay? Especially since the bottom in this entire area is very unforgiving. It's very snaggy, okay? Very jagged. You lose a lot of tackle there, okay? So just be careful, be forewarned. Whereas with the jigs, they can hit the bottom and you can get them up off the bottom very quickly. You can control exactly where the jig is in the water column. And like I said, those scamp groupers respond really well to those jigs. Now, point I'm making on a lot of charts, including raster charts, a lot of guys don't even know this area exists. But once you start digging deeper with, enhanced charts, may it be Seymour, may it be strike lines, or of course our Furuno TZTXL with bathy vision that maps the entire bottom. I'm looking at the bottom, I'm looking at the ocean in a way that most people have never even seen before. And that's such a valuable tool. It allows me to find untouched areas, if you can even believe that. Believe that there are still some areas off the Florida Keys that are untouched, okay? There really are. And that's, I think, as technology continues to advance, those areas are going to become more and more rare. But great time of the year right now to start exploring, pushing the boundaries, deep dropping for the tilefish and yellow edge grouper, which is still open, it's fine, but that's rapidly coming to a close. Middle toward the end of July, that's over. So you're going to need to look for some other deep drop targets if that's your game, okay? Further offshore, dolphin, higher up in the water column, come on, the dolphin bite has been better than I could ever remember, okay, honestly. It's very, very consistent. There's a lot of schoolies out there, and the trend of seeing bigger fish mixed in is continuing. Yes, it's hard to see a 30 to 50 pounder. They're obviously, not as common as they once were, but for every 1 out of every 100, for every 1 out of every 1,000, or whatever those numbers are, you're going to find that trophy bull or a bull and cow or a few bulls. But once again, that's really going to come to the guys who put in the time and the effort. Fish the fresh baits. The live pilchards, of course, are going to be a big, big benefit if you're looking for action as far as numbers are concerned with dolphin. Find a weed line with some burrs, whatever it is. Throw some live baits, and I'm telling you what, before long, you should be plenty busy with all of the schoolies that you're looking for. I've got a couple of dolphin trips coming up tomorrow, over the weekend here. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to skip the schoolies. I'm looking for just bigger fish, and I want to explain to you how I'm doing that. No bait whatsoever, no live bait. I know those pilchards obviously help keep all the schoolies fired up around the boat when you get them around the boat. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'd rather troll looking for bigger fish in the teens, 20s, 30s, and who knows, maybe even something bigger. Heck, right now is a great time of the year to even come across a blue marlin out here off the Florida Keys. Not a species that you typically would specifically target here. There's only one blue marlin tournament out of Key West held anywhere in the Keys. But they're always a possibility, and they're always a bycatch for guys that are out there dolphin fishing, and no time is better than right now. They're out there chasing a schoolie dolphin. That's what they're eating. So for me, having that shot at a blue, look, I've caught a lot of blue marlin in my days, but only one has been off of South Florida, and that was up off of Pompano. I've yet to have a shot here off the Keys, but it could happen tomorrow. Nevertheless, I'm fishing a spread of lures, Zack Attack smalls and extra smalls. These are bigger baits. Here's an example. It's a 6-8 inch bait, depending on which one you're pulling. But it's a much larger profile, right? What does that mimic? Ballyhoo, flying fish, a juvenile, dolphin. I don't care what it mimics. It mimics something that the big dolphin, jump all over, okay? Because they want a big meal. They want a big reward. I would say big flying fish, dead ringer for a big flyer. But these Zack Attack lures, the Thunderstruck, the Smoka, they're great baits to be able to pull fast. That's number one. I like to pull these at around 10 knots, 10 miles an hour. So I'm covering a lot of ground. They're far more weedless than a natural 2-hook rig ballyhoo or something like that you're going to be clearing grass off of all day long. Here I can blow through the grass, and if I get, fouled and I get some grass on there, it's easy to reel them up, clean it up, throw it right back out there, and you're fishing in seconds, okay? I don't have to fish 8, 10, 12 lines. I'm going to start 4 or 5. You don't think you got to go crazy. All right, we put one off the tip of each of our taco outriggers, a couple of flat lines, one shotgun. Maybe I could add 2 more depending on the conditions. So I keep a nice clean spread, monitoring every bait, making sure every lure is in the right position on the face of the wake. And we're looking for frigates. We're starting out in 800, working our way deeper and deeper, all the way out to the swordfish grounds. I don't care about the little birds that are typically picking small baits from schoolies. I want frigates. That's the sign of bigger dolphin for sure. And we're going to focus our energy, I don't want to call it high-speed trolling, but covering a lot of ground, big baits, looking for big dolphin. But we're sacrificing the opportunity to bend rods on schoolies. That's okay. You do whatever you would like to do. And if it's quantity you're after, target the schoolies. If it's quality you're after, start thinking about it a little bit differently. Additionally, I really enjoy fishing artificials. I really, really like fishing fake baits, okay? It just takes up the challenge a notch, having that presentation really dialed in, knowing you're fooling a brilliant game fish on plastic or metal, whatever it is that you're pulling. So for me, that's just fascinating, makes it even more challenging. I really, really like it. And like I said, having that ability to potentially encounter a blue marlin, that possibility keeps your hopes really high throughout the entire time that you're trolling. So a lot of fun, but of course, balance. Again, balance. Remember what we talked about earlier. Your tackle has to be balanced, right? I'm fishing Tiagra 20s topped off with fresh 30-pound diamond line, the high vis and the orange crush. But the reel's loaded in backing, braid backing, so I've got a unlimited amount of distance on my reels of capacity, no matter what I may encounter offshore. Every one of my connections is bulletproof, really dialed in, and I'm ready for those bigger fish. So it's not just tie on a bigger bait and hope for the best. You've got to scale everything up and balance everything accordingly. Look, while you're out there sword fishing, for those who are going even further, this last week we've had quite a bit of wind and it's been a little choppy offshore. Not a lot of guys have been off sword fishing, but certainly a few have, and they've had excellent success with multiple bites on each trip, mixed size fish. Typical sword fishing here in the Keys, okay? Any day could be that day where you can find that one, or you may go out there and not get a bite, but that's rare. If you're fishing, a tip rod and a buoy rod and you're fishing the fresh baits, again, reverting back to what we said earlier, if it's the fresh bonita belly, or there's no better time of the year to get your hands on dolphin bellies. Remember, I mentioned this in the beginning of the report that we would talk more about this. A fresh dolphin belly is irresistible to a hungry swordfish. It slithers through the water, has a lot of movement, a lot of scent, a lot of color. It makes sense as a deep water swordfish bait. They're not incredibly difficult to rig at all. And right now, end of June, when there's so many schoolies out there, I don't think there's an easier time to get your hands on dolphin bellies. You can go out there and fish for them yourself and catch them. But if you don't have the time, energy, effort, whatever it may be, just visit your local charter docks. These guys are bringing home a lot of schoolies every day. Getting your hands on a few bellies for bait should not be a problem right now at all. Okay, shouldn't be a problem. So that's a great option as well. Out at the humps, the blackfin tuna bite remains strong, mixed with skipjack. Always a possibility for dolphin to be in that trio as well, okay? It's a staple down here. I guarantee you go out to the humps tomorrow morning, you show up at 8 a.m., there's 35 boats already. You show up at 10 a.m., you missed the bite, my friend. I mean, it's ridiculous how many guys run out there. But I want to stress, those aren't the only humps. The popular humps that you see here, Marathon Hump, the 409, the Isle Morada Hump, etc. Guys, there are other big humps out there that produce fish on a regular basis that also have these massive current upwellings and set the stage for the same type of feeding scenario. So don't overlook those, especially with all that new charting software. Keep your eyes out for some of those other hot spots and put in some time exploring some of those other hot spots. And I think you may find that you don't have to run to the go-to spots and deal with all that craziness every single trip. Look, there's so much more to talk about, right? The dry Tortugas, Pulley Ridge way out in the Gulf there. These places are loaded in fish. Here it is summertime. Keep an eye on the weather. If we have a stretch where it's nice, no crazy thunderstorms, get out and fish these spots. Put in the time, put in the effort. The chum, the bait, the rigging, okay? That's what you're gonna take away from this report. Also, look, for more info, guys, I need you to join Florida Sport Fishing TV Plus at fsftv.com. We're approaching 800 instructional videos on a wide array of different topics and species relevant to Florida's angling and resident, or I should say relevant to Florida's resident and visiting angling community. All right, everything is on here. And with some of these recent seminars, the only place you're gonna see them is on Florida Sport Fishing TV Plus. In addition to that, we're talking about membership benefits, including big discounts on rods, reels, line, services, products, including you're going to be the first to get information on our all-new fishing lodge. We're nearing completion. on the first ever premier angling destination here in the Florida Keys. This is going to be home to Captain Mike Genoun's Offshore Fishing Academy. If you're looking for a joyride, typical charter, just average visit to the Keys, I'm not your guy and this isn't your place. My commitment is firm. Captain Mike Genoun's Offshore Fishing Academy is reserved specifically for really passionate anglers who want to shorten the learning curve and eliminate empty fish boxes forever. We're going to offer single and multi-day instructional hands-on fishing courses with an expanded lineup, including wahoo fishing, daytime sword fishing, deep dropping, reef and wreck fishing, kite fishing, okay, even boat handling and marine electronics. There's absolutely something for everyone with all-inclusive dockside accommodations. So keep your eyes peeled. In the coming weeks, in the coming months, you're going to learn a lot more about Captain Mike's Offshore Fishing Academy. But remember that name. In the meantime, get out there this weekend, get hooked up, okay? And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the water.